Blank, and I'm the editor and publisher of Blank Slate Media. I'd like to welcome you to our discussion with Keith Corbett, the mayor of Malvern. Keith is now running for New York's 4th Congressional District as a Democrat in the Democratic primary, and is joining Blank Slate Media in its series of talks with candidates in the different races. I'd like to start by thanking Northwell once again, Northwell Health, for once again sponsoring our get-togethers, and kick off our discussion with by asking you, Keith, why are you running?
Yeah. Well, listen, once again, I do appreciate Blank Slate Media setting this up and reaching out. I think it's good to educate the voters on the different candidates, and I appreciate the opportunity. First and foremost, I'm running because I'm upset. I think most people are. Washington is not working the way it's supposed to. We're losing that dream that is democracy. It's too partisan. There's too much rancor. You know, I've spent my entire career politically as a law chair of the Democratic Party, as an attorney representing President Barack Obama in the Bertha case, Joe Biden's counsel to his presidential campaign in New York, as a mayor, bringing in more grants to my village than they've ever seen in 100 years, navigating partisanship and bringing the resources back to the people in the district who need them. And we need to show our children and our grandchildren what democracy looks like, because no one's seen it since 2010. And I've been involved in this business. I'm 15 years old. I understand the game, and it's about time someone plays the game for us, not for them, not for party bosses, not for supporters, for the people, hardworking, honest people who live in this district. And I'm going to go down there. I'm going to get this done for us.
So you say since 2010. What happened after 2010 that
well, listen,
democracy is no longer working?
Yeah, well, listen, we've had issue advocacy, which the other side, the Republican Party, was great at promoting over the past 40 years. In 2010, they had their Tea Party movement, which really stopped moderate Republicans from being able to reach across the aisle. Currently, for the past few years, we're in the middle of our own Tea Party in the Democratic side. You know, we have socialist and a lot of leftist policies that are coming out of left field that don't work, that seem to work in, you know, the ivory tower or maybe in a classroom, but not practically. I am a centrist Democrat. I call myself a true Democrat, and our policies provide for the vast majority of this country. The problem is, as a party, we don't message well. We don't sell ourselves well. We gave people pensions so they can retire with dignity. We ensure that elderly can get access to prescription drugs and medical benefits. We're the ones who ban assault rifles. We need to get back to being the party that provides for everyone. We do. We need the message. But more importantly, since the Tea Party came in for the Republicans and now the socialist contingents in our party, everyone plays to a base, and no one does the work of the people.
So you left out one other factor, which is the Trump wing of the Republican Party. And a large portion of the Republican electorate that doesn't believe that Joe Biden won in a free and fair election. So what do you see that there's an equivalency here between the wing of a large portion of the Republican Party, which is saying that Joe Biden didn't win in a free and fair election, and the handful of people in the Democratic Party who call themselves socialists?
Yeah, sure.
Is there an equivalent? You think that's equivalent?
No, I don't. What I think is this. I'm the only candidate running in any congressional district on Long Island who has experience with election law and civil rights litigation. I've done every single recount in Nassau County for every election from Tom Suozzi in 2009 on as a law chair. I've been an election law practitioner my entire legal career. New York has the fairest election system. These ounces and instances where they claim there's fraud do not exist. They don't exist even beyond New York and other states where the Secretary of State runs the elections. Donald Trump flat out lost the presidential election, plain and simple. The fact of the matter is, though, because of the issue advocacy, because of the Tea Party, because of the socialists, no one speaks the truth and speaks to the people anymore. They play to the base that gets them elected in a primary. We created this issue that is Donald Trump, and he's atrocious, and he's not going to win an election if he chooses to run. But the fact of the matter is, a leftist policy of the Democratic Party taints the Democratic brand. If they want to be socialist, They can run on the socialist platform. They can have a party again, put their name up there. They'll never win an election, but they can't take our party over.
You've just had a period, though. If you're looking at the period, we just had legislation passed with the support of Joe Manchin, who's the most moderate member of the Senate, on a climate tax and healthcare plan. Mm-hmm. It's the largest plan in terms of climate change. Do you agree with that? Do you think that was socialist, or do you think that was not moderate enough for you?
Oh, no. Listen, no, I absolutely support the plan that was just passed. I think it's a great victory for our president, who I represented here in New York. I think it's going to provide relief where relief's due. I spoke about seniors getting access to health care and prescription drugs. How about not having to pay more than $2,000 and almost going bankrupt in their elder years now? It's amazing what we've done with the environment. It's a great plan. But how many Republicans voted for that plan?
Well, that's
the point.
You're saying that the Democrats have just passed a number of pieces of legislation. They had gun control, the most significant gun control legislation in the past 20 years.
Yeah.
Didn't go far enough, in my opinion, but they did pass it first time. They just got a health care for veterans.
Absolutely.
Okay. The people for those.
After the Republicans tried to hold it up for a week or two.
But what I'm asking you is, where in the Democratic legislation that was passed? We also got an infrastructure bill that was bipartisan, where we just got a CHIPS bill so that we can enhance the semiconductor industry in the United States. So where is that the Democrats are being socialist? I don't see.
No.
I'm looking for. Tell me where you see the socialist takeover or influence in the Democratic Party, because most of this, some of it is bipartisan, and they did get Republicans. Others, you just said you supported what was just passed in terms of climate control. So where is the socialist influence?
What I'm saying, what we spoke about, is messaging. And we spoke about is branding ourselves and explaining to the electorate who we are.
Well, you're not helping when you're calling this legislation socialist.
Well, hold on.
If you have candidates,
Mr. Blank, just so we're on the same page, I never called this legislation socialist.
No. You said that there's a problem with the socialist influence in the Democratic Party, and I'm trying to say to you, if you'll let me, it's not that it's taken over policy and legislation at the federal level. It has a little bit at the state. What it is it's messed up the messaging and the branding. They're trying to say we're something we're not. We're the party that actually got those bills passed. We're the party that actually put the infrastructure in place. We're the party who did the Inflation Reduction Act. That's the true Democratic Party. But when you go out there and you message and you speak the points, there is this socialist contingent that is still thriving. When you have a senator who claims to be a Democratic socialist, when you have a congresswoman claiming to be a Democratic socialist, they don't exist. We're Democrats, we're Republicans, liberals, progressive Democrats can live together. I didn't say what was passed was a socialist agenda. I said we have a branding problem, and we're getting tainted as socialists because of other individuals that identify as Democrats. And I don't believe those individuals on the far fringes of the left should have the right to come in and try to usurp or take over my party's ideals, my party's platform, because our platform provides for 95% of this country, just like what was just passed in Congress does as well. I'm saying we're at a slippery slope. We can't let more of those types of thinkers and elected officials into Congress, or we will lose the Democratic Party. And the Democratic Party, of which I am as a member and a proud member of, needs to stand up, put its shoulders back, and explain who we are. And when we do it properly, a vast majority of this country votes for us because we care about a vast majority of this country. Okay, so you're running now against former Hempstead Supervisor Laura Gillen, Miserable Huck, I might be mispronouncing that, and Nassau County Legislator Carrie Szilagyi. Of those candidates, and this is for the primary that we're going to have on Tuesday, do any of them, do they represent, in your mind, in their presentation of views, that portion of the Democratic Party that you say are espousing socialist remarks?
Yeah, listen, I believe you can look at the supporters of Laura Gillen. You could see the individuals who come out for her, and they definitely have a leftist contingent component that are behind her. You can look at the cryptocurrency company and his super PAC that's given her money. You can look at the causes they've advocated for. Though it's selfish for themselves, there is a leftist contingent of the Laura Gillen platform, and some of her supporters do tinge that way. I believe it's not good for the party. I don't believe it's good for CD4.
What issues do you see that in? When you say there's a leftist tint, where do you see that? Where is that presented?
By who's supporting her? You know, if you have indivisible groups and groups that identify as socialist actively supporting your candidacy, obviously you must have leftist leanings as well. Well, and she has those groups supporting her.
Tell me where you see that. That should be. I mean, everyone. You could have people that would be, any part of the political spectrum supporting you, but that doesn't necessarily mean
that's not true. That's not true.
You're only supported. Your support comes from.
No. Let me just explain something to you. And maybe I'm a different breed because I'm running in a primary and going to the center. And as you know, you usually win primaries by going to the left or the right, depending on your party. I'm also a different breed in that, as an election law attorney, I represent a lot of PACs. I represent a lot of individuals who I refuse to accept money from, even though they know me and I've been their attorney, because they're not policies that I would advocate for when I get there. I have turned down endorsements. I have turned down people from supporting me financially if I didn't agree with their views. Now, I know that's uncommon, and maybe it makes me just, naive. But the people who've supported me, put their hard-earned dollars behind me, are individuals in this district. We're running the largest grassroots campaign CD4 has ever seen. 290 volunteers, all political persuasions, religions, creeds, and colors coming out. Never been involved in politics before. But the message resonates. You know why it resonates? Because no one believes Washington is working for them. They're working for special interest. They believe the Democrats have a problem with branding because of socialists. Meanwhile, Democratic policies work, like you just saw out of Washington. But we do have a branding and imaging problem, which I think. And the fact of the matter is, I won't accept that support from groups that don't align with myself financially or with the bodies they can put on the ground. This is a grassroots campaign. She accepts that support. She obviously must have those leanings, or maybe she's not strong enough to stand on her own 2 feet. She needs the support to help her.
Okay, just to be clear, are there any policy positions that she has taken in the campaign that you believe support the idea that she has leftist leaning?
She hasn't taken any policy position. She won't even do a real debate with me. She's been hiding in her basement, relying on her name recognition. I don't know what her positions are, but I got to tell you, when you look at people who are supporting her, you can't tell me she's a centrist Democrat right down the middle like me. But more importantly, I know how to navigate Washington and bring back resources. I represent many members of Congress, the United States Senate, the past 4 governors of the state of New York. She doesn't know anything down there. It's about time we sent a real person down to do the job of the people. You want to ask her about her policy positions? I'd love to hear them too, because she refuses to debate me.
Okay. So let me ask you this in terms of the of where you are in terms of the issues. Let's start with Nassau County, because in the last election, well, Laura Gillen did win the race. She was the first Democrat in 100 years to win in the town of Hempstead. So she did appeal to a broad base in the town of Hempstead several years ago. But let me ask you what happened in the most recent election, countywide election. The Democrats were swept. Why do you think the Democrats were swept in the countywide races that we had? Bruce Blakeman, Ann Donnelly, Elaine Phillips, they were all elected. What happened there? What do you think in the politics? What do you attribute that to?
Well, listen, I want to talk about my race, to be very fair, Mr. Blank. I'm not here to talk about the race that Laura Curran lost. I'm not here to talk about the race Laura Gillen lost because she didn't get reelected. I'm here to talk about what I'm doing in CD4. Okay. And what I'm doing in CD4 is providing a message with a competency that no one else has to bring back resources to this district. It is resonating with the voters. It's resonating with the volunteers. We're going to win the primary, and I'm the only candidate who will win the general. And you want to know why I win the general? Because I'm the Democratic mayor of one of the most Republican villages in the district, and they voted for me. Why? Because I get results. I get results. I know how to get roads paved. I know how to get grants. I know how to keep our police department funded. I know how to keep our police department one of the safest village in Nassau County, one of the top 10 in the state. I'm the only one in this race who's ever administered a police department, actually funded them, gave them training, insured for social services, all coming from me. I have the experience to do it. And I have experience to get down there and ensure that other departments in CD4 can get the funding so that they can be trained and they can have social service technicians and other assets, just like Malvern does. There are easy fixes to our problems. If we want to keep talking about the past with Laura Curran and Laura Gillen, God bless, but Laura Gillen's lost more elections than she won, and she's lost to Republicans every time.
Well, you do mention in your, and this, a lot of people believe that for countywide, that you do mention that you will never defund the police. And you do mention bail reform as being a major issue. Now that's a state issue. So you are mentioning it on your website.
Yeah. You want to know why, or you have a question?
Yeah. So is that not pertinent to what happened in Nassau County? That was one of the major issues that led to the defeat of Laura Curran and Todd Kaminsky in the last election. So you do think that's an important issue. Where do you see that in relationship to running for Congress?
I think it's directly related to running for Congress, because if you actually have a congressperson who can bring back the funding for the police departments in this district, I have 9 police departments in CD4. You know how many of them get mental health training? 1, mine. You know how even the Nassau County Police Department only gets trained in one thing every year: how to fire their firearms. Why? Because no one wants to pay the money for the overtime. I negotiated 2 CBA contracts. We're able to fund it sustainably without breaking the bank. And my officers are trained in every facet of police work. So how do you fix that? Why do we have to use our real property taxes for it? Federal money can be used for overtime. We take the federal resources. We have 6,200 illegal guns coming into this county almost daily. What do? Not one department, except for the county of Nassau, has a small contingent of those focused on illegal guns. None of the other 8 focus on illegal guns. Each person puts up a member. They become a team. The data gets delivered from the DEA and FBI, and the funding comes through the FBI funding so that we can pay for the overtime for that team of officers to literally track down and stop illegal guns from coming into this county. It will directly reduce crime, which is starting to uptick, and it will directly provide the funding necessary for us to keep our communities safe. We do it in Malvern. I'll make sure it's done in all other 8. That's funding that can be done that no congressperson has ever tried to advocate for and get. If you want to talk about bail reform was meant to fix a simple problem. You should not have to spend the night in jail because you don't have the funds to get out. But the way it was legislated and came out, there's a big gray area into what's considered a violent crime or not. It wasn't done properly. Done properly, you could fix the problem and not have crime being elevated. It was not done properly. It should be fixed.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the other issues. We can talk about abortion.
Sure.
Would you favor legislation, federal legislation, that would make abortion legal, basically codify Roe versus Wade nationally?
Yes, I would. Matter of fact, I have a plan that's laid out of how we counter abortion. The Republican Party has spent 50 years in a long-term game to get what the Supreme Court just gave them. We as Democrats need to start playing the long-term game, and it's a trilateral approach. We need litigation. I truly believe something that the legal scholars don't want to focus on. I've been doing Fourth Amendment civil rights litigation my entire career. An unreasonable search and seizure can occur when you prohibit someone from doing something. The first time, just happened in Indiana, a woman's denied an abortion. There should be federal litigation under the Fourth Amendment, not under privacy, under unreasonable search and seizure. We have a constitution that, if you break it all down, revolves around 2 principles: liberty and freedom of choice. You cannot deny a woman the right to do what she wants to do with her body. We never have to get into viability of life or any of that. Plain and simple, her body, her choice.
That's not what the
I would
Supreme
bring,
Court has ruled.
I would, as an attorney, and seeing the Constitution and seeing the process that is there, it's violation of the Constitution. And the issue I'm bringing up was never decided by the Supreme Court. You're talking about, if you want to look at legal precedents, no one ever brought affirmative litigation to say her body was unreasonably searched and seized. They went under the Equal Protection Clause, and they went under a small part of the Fourth Amendment that deals with privacy rights. Forget privacy rights. You just unreasonably searched and seized a woman's body. That issue's never been decided by the Supreme Court, never been presented to the Supreme Court. We need litigation for them. We need staunch advocates like me in government roles in Congress fighting for a woman's right to choose. And then we need the advocacy groups out there continuing to get support, continuing to get the men and women who, by a vast majority, are pro or against or for abortion out there going forward. But the issue that I'm telling you has never been presented or decided by the Supreme Court. The first abortion declared when a woman's told no, unreasonable search and seizure, Fourth Amendment. Let all the wonderful legal scholars who for 50 years made a career laugh about it. It will work. It will get decided. Supreme Court never should be in the doctor or medical room deciding if there's a viable life or not, how many weeks. It's an unreasonable search
are
and seizure.
you suggesting legislation or a challenge or a case before the Supreme Court?
I think I just told you before, it's a trilateral approach. I'm all for the legislation. I think we need to play the long game like the Republicans and bring the litigation. And we need to keep supporting our advocacy groups like Planned Parenthood and everything else. Republicans play a long game. We need to start playing that game. It goes back to branding and messaging. Socialists destroy our brand.
So let's look at some of the issues some other issues. Some of the things that the original Build Back Better, which didn't gain the support of Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin, included universal, let's take it one by one, universal pre-K.
Yep.
Would you support universal pre-K?
100%. You want to go a step further with that? You want me to give you a step further on policy?
Sure.
I believe education is a fundamental right. It's not defined that way by the Supreme Court. Defined as a fundamental right. It gets a higher review anytime it's challenged and allows you access to education at a younger and older age. Provides for everyone. Universal pre-K should absolutely be legislated. I stand by it. We should educate our children. It's appalling that we don't. But more importantly, we should have legislation through Congress that provides that education is a fundamental right under the United States Constitution. And then we'll get all the protections that is due and afforded, and we'll never have an issue with Republicans stalling us from funding kids getting educated.
When you say kids being educated, up to what point? Do you think that through high school, or are you talking about beyond?
I think anyone in this country who wants to be educated should have the opportunity to be educated. I believe we've had an issue with a student loan crisis in this country. Bill Clinton allowed more people to go to college than anyone else by offering those grants. Republicans beat them down in certain of the assets. And then we had these bottom feeders, servicing loan companies that were out there. The fact is we should have universal pre-K. Everyone should be entitled to a good education all the way through college. Now, there will still be private colleges. No one has an issue with that. But state schools, CUNY schools, their prices are increasing dramatically. There's funding that can be given so every child, regardless of his station in life or his parents' station in life, can get the education he deserves. We need to start significantly funding and expanding access to education across this country in every community.
Are we talking about, we have loans? Do you think there should be loan forgiveness?
I am 100% in favor of not just forgiving some of the loans, forgive them all. And I'll give you the economic answer why. $1.2 trillion. We're about to head into a recession. I think we all understand the economy right now is hurting. Why there's probably a red wave coming in November, coupled with some of the other things we've spoken about. You free up $1.2 trillion, you're staving off a recession. That $400 a month that a kid's working hard to send into his loan servicing company, and he never sees his loan go down. And now it's been frozen for 2 years, and guess what? He's going to get clobbered when it opens up, or she opens it up. Free it up. Where do you think that $400 a month that was going to student loans is going? It's going hopefully to help them with their home, help them with their new baby. It's going into the restaurants. It's going into free. $1.2 trillion gets immediately released into the economy if you wipe out all the student loans.
So,
and people can make the argument, well, those kids, they knew what they were taking out. They did. And the government did a horrible job at making sure that the student loan servicers didn't take those kids and their families for granted for years. And if anyone actually really looks at it, and there's been multiple investigations in Congress, you'll see people were paying back more than what they were supposed to. Fact of the matter is, we have a recession coming. You want to stave it off? Free up $1.2 trillion in the economy. It's sitting right there.
Okay. The child care credit, we eliminated in the first COVID relief, we eliminated almost half of the child poverty level, but then it wasn't renewed. Should we reinstate the child tax credits that brought down child poverty in this country?
Yes. And I think there are other ways you can skin that cat as well. I think it can go further than what it did then. We've done a lot of one-offs during COVID. A lot of money is being sent around. $1.2 trillion in student loans can be done. Child tax credits did work. It did lower the poverty rate among children. Listen, any society should be judged by how it treats its most vulnerable. Children and the elderly and our veterans. And I got to tell you, all three of those groups in this country right now are not getting a fair shake. And I will be a staunch advocate for all three of those groups to ensure children get educated, the elderly get their prescription drugs treated with dignity, and the veterans finally get the respect they deserve.
So let me ask you this, and I guess we'll add in 4 weeks paid leave.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Mr. Blank.
4 weeks paid leave. For 4 weeks paid leave if you have a child.
Listen, I've always been a staunch advocate for 6. We know where they've always been beaten on 4. We'll take whatever we can get if the Republicans are still dealing with us. We do have to compromise, but I'm a staunch advocate of 6 weeks paid leave, husband or mother or parent for the child.
So let me ask you this. Those are the elements that Joe Manchin, who is, some people call him moderate, some people call him.
I don't call him a moderate. I'll tell you what I call Joe Manchin.
What?
A Republican. There you go. If you want to look at, no, seriously here. Forget the rhetoric and all the screaming and all the yelling in Washington and your opinions and my opinions. Look at his policies, his literal policies. Read his policies, read his statements. He's pushing a Republican agenda from a state that mostly votes Republican. Maybe he has to. Personally, maybe he is a Democrat. I don't know. But his policies evidence that of a Republican who just happens to have a D in his name. That's just policy. If you want to talk about Kristen Sinema, I don't think anyone knows what she is. She's so all over the place, you can't figure her out. But the fact of the matter is, don't be telling me Joe Manchin's the most moderate Democrat. When I get to Washington, I'll be the most moderate Democrat in any house. But the fact of the matter is, Joe Manchin's a Republican.
But let me ask you this, because you're saying universal pre-K, child care credit, paid family leave,
progressive policies.
Those were all
progressive
policies.
Policies.
Those are progressive policies.
Yeah.
So I'm asking you. Those are the
listen, I
sort
like
of people
progressives.
that get called socialists.
No.
Bernie Sanders.
You keep twisting it, Mr. Blank. You keep twisting it. Let's do this again.
I'm not twisting.
Hold on. Let's do this again. I just want to make sure it's clear for all your viewers
All right.
out there.
Me too.
Democrats are a big tent. We have progressives. We have liberals. We have middle of the road Democrats like myself that all come together because of that thought and that persuasion, that tug and that pull. We sometimes don't message properly because we can't get so unified, but we come up with great policies, progressive policies. I'm not against progressives or liberals. What I'm against is anyone using the term socialist, because that's going to kill us at the ballot box and destroy my party, which provides for everyone in this country. And I'm against those that actually have true socialist leanings. Some of Bernie Sanders' leanings are true socialist leanings.
Well,
same thing with AOC. If you have the leanings of a socialist and you match up with socialism, or more importantly, if you use the word socialist, you're destroying our brand and our party. I have no problem with progressives. Some progressive policies are the ones that I just took credit for earlier, being a true Democrat. How'd you get a pension? Wish we could bring that back. How'd you get the weekend? They start off as progressive policies. Progressives are Democrats. I have no issue with progressives. Liberals. I have an issue when you define yourself or hold yourself out as a socialist, because that's going to tell the electorate you're something that's not a Democrat. And they're going to taint all Democrats that way. And we're the only party fighting for the common man and woman.
Now, let's talk about voting rights and what's happening.
I got to tell you, though, Mr. Duffy's going to have, he has a lot to write. Let's see if he gets it right. Some people do.
Okay. Well, that's why we record things, so you can hold us to account.
And you're going to send me a copy of the video, the full video unedited after, right?
Yeah, we'll send it. We're happy to send you a link.
That'd be great.
We're gonna try to make you a subscriber. We don't. We'll get you to subscribe to the Hyde Park Herald Courier yet.
Well, we'll see how the video and the written story goes. Maybe I will subscribe.
Okay, all right, that's good. So let me ask you this: would you, if Joe Biden would you support Joe Biden running for re-election at this point?
Dang right I will. He's my president. I represented him as his counsel in New York State when he ran for president. He has the right ideas, the right temperament, and obviously you can see he can get things done. He had the most successful week of his presidency in the past 7 days. But more importantly than him having a successful week, the American people, they haven't seen it yet. They will start to see it. Just got benefits that they deserve. Seniors with health care, renewable energy. All the things he just did will actually directly impact someone's life. And they will see that in a tangible way. Joe Biden wants to run for president. He's the current president. I believe in one word in politics, it's loyalty. It's a currency that's in short supply in this business, but guess what? I'm loyal. And if Joe Biden wants to run for president, he'll have my support.
And what about Nancy Pelosi as House Speaker, if she chooses to run again?
Yeah, listen, I don't know if she runs again.
And that's
from what I'm hearing and hear down there, she probably
win.
Won't. I mean, listen, I'm not going to opine on that. That's a topic that I will gladly discuss with you when I'm sworn into the House of Representatives and I have a vote on the topic now. I'm not going to sit here in a primary election, run against someone who won't even, come out and debate me and make a comment about something I may do when I get there. When I get there, I'll gladly come to you and speak with you again right here and tell you how I'm going to vote for Speaker of the House or Minority Leader. But guess what? Send me to Washington, whether it's the Minority Leader or the Speaker of the House. We're going to make sure this district gets taken care of, and that I can guarantee you.
The other another large question, and this influences what's going to happen, particularly in the presidential election, but it's also playing out, and actually who's going to take control, which is voting rights. How serious a threat do you see what's being done across the country in terms of voting rights, in terms of gerrymandering?
It is horrendous. Mr. Blank, I'm not going to cut you off.
You're an election lawyer. You're an election lawyer. So
listen, one of the first things I want to do is pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. And I will fight every single day to get that enacted. What is happening right now across this country by the Republican Party is akin to Jim Crow in the South. It really is. What they are doing to communities of color across this country is disgraceful. Let me tell you a story. When Obama was running for president, some of those things happened right here in Nassau County. I've implemented and created the largest voter protection effort in Nassau County. I have 360 attorneys who go out to all the poll sites every general election day and protect the right of people to vote. Let me tell you what happens right here, not far from me, right here in North Valley Stream. Election day, as the demographics of their neighborhoods changed, they started bringing sanitation workers in, big burly guys, and they stand by the front door intimidating people walking through. That's how I started the program way back in 2009. I started going to those sites myself, moving them out, claiming election interference. They were literally trying to intimidate little old women of color, that's mostly who they were going after, from voting. This stuff still happens. You want to talk voter fraud? There's no voter fraud. There's been research done by bipartisan groups. I've been there. There is no fraud. The safest election system in this country happens in New York. The fairest system is in New York. Democrats and Republicans running a board, looking over each other's shoulder. Nothing gets done unless they both agree. It's fair. But what they're doing across this country, requiring citizenship tests and other tests, it's almost akin to what was happening after Reconstruction. And it's abysmal. You know why? Because if everyone votes, Republicans never win. They play to the rich, those there. The problem is, as Democrats, we never brand and show the world what we're really about. And if we clearly explain our policies, don't get all crazy with the commas and the drafting. No, just explain in simple terms our policies. 95% of the American people benefit from us. And again, those are true middle of the road, centrist democratic policies that I believe in, the policies that I fight for every day. But the Voting Rights Act needs to be enacted. And the Republican Party, again, is playing the long game. What did they do? 20 years ago, where'd they focus their energy? State houses, governorships. What do they do with the state houses? Started passing abortion laws. What do they do now? Past 6 years, started passing voting rights challenges, trying to make it harder for people to vote, trying to make it harder for people to get on a bus outside their church and go vote. They're against everything because they know the more people will vote, the less likely they are to win, especially here in Nassau County where we outnumber Republicans. We just need to get our voters out. And it's about time we have a candidate, which I think is myself, who can motivate them, speak to them, and they know from my record we'll go down and fight for them. And you don't have a more Democratic record than me. I represented President Obama, Joe Biden, the governor, Congress people, senators, all Democrats.
One of the things that in this area and across the country, and it's also a cause of inflation, and we'll get to that as the next question. But the question of affordable housing.
Yeah.
There's a shortage in the New York metropolitan area of that.
Yeah, there is.
Governor Hochul came up with a plan to allow second units in every residential area. That was withdrawn after there was a large opposition. What would you do to affordable housing? Because right now, the children of people who live here can't afford to move back to where they grew up.
It's true.
There's not enough homes that they can afford.
Yeah.
So is there a role now? Long Island has a history.
Huge role.
Of pushing people away from moving in by zoning. Mm-hmm. Is there something on the federal level that you would see being done to increase the amount of affordable housing in places like Long Island?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, it will work for affordable housing. It will work for illegal guns. It will work for infrastructure that we need out here. And it's low-hanging fruit. You don't need an act of Congress to get this done. If you know the players, I do, and you know how the policy works and the rules and regulations work, you can get it done. Here's how it is. First step, money, when it's distributed from the federal government, you know where it goes? It goes to two places if you live in Nassau County. Where's it go, Mr. Blank? Where's that money go?
It goes to the county.
Or
it goes to
the state.
The state.
And then villages like mine and all the villages we have here have to go and beg the state and beg the county. By the time they get it, it's 18 months, 24 months, 36 months later. Put the money with the level of government that deals with the people every day. They use a HUD formula. Fine. They haven't come up with another one yet. There should be increased funding through the formula if you're going to base it upon the citizenships that we have out here. And it basically based upon the last census. I list our last representative in this district would have fought to make sure that funding went higher for the village of Hempstead, village of Freeport. She didn't. She should. But that money should go directly to the municipalities that can spend it and deal with it appropriately. One of the things that I've promised 26 mayors, I'm one of those in my district, is this. Any legislation, any funding coming out of any agency in Washington, and there's a lot of funding sitting there, under the rules and regs, will directly to the local governments. If you're getting the money because I have a certain population in Malvern and it's Malvern's money, it should go right to Malvern. It should go right to Freeport, right to Hempstead, two largest villages in the state. They're larger than most cities in the state, and they got to beg the county or the state. No, the money goes directly to the municipalities. It's about time Congress learns that up here in New York and in New England, we have villages, and villages provide most of the services. I run a village that is completely autonomous, own fire, own police, helped us during COVID, allowed us to keep infection rates down, allowed me with my contacts to get funding into here to make sure everyone was safe. Only thing we don't have is utilities. They have to ensure that the money gets to the villages.
But it's the villages often and their zoning that are passing zoning to restrict affordable housing.
That's not. I agree with you 15 years ago. I agree with you 20 years ago and probably through the history of Long Island. But I got to tell you, I do a lot of zoning and land use work here on this island. I represent a lot of municipalities. And you don't have restrictive zoning occurring like it used to. I mean, that's an old game. The zoning is the zoning. You have a zoning board deciding it. But the fact of the matter is, there is money coming in for the village for affordable housing that the village never gets. You ask any mayor around here, there's $1 million they want to send to him or her. They're going to find a way to make it work. But I will say this, no one, no governor, no president, no congressman, no senator, no county exec should ever take away the village's right to control its zoning. But restrictive zoning hasn't been occurring anywhere near what you're saying it is in at least 15 years. Find me one. You won't. A lot of the litigation's worked. There's zoning in place. The problem is they're not getting the funding to even assist those that need to bring in affordable units. Get the funding directly to them. That's the point. No one knows better what to do in a local community than the local elected, the local village. And it's why our villages in this district look beautiful. Drive through it. You drive through CD4, you can tell if you're in a village or an unincorporated area just by the way it looks. But there's very few restrictive zoning policies happening today. I agree with you, it did happen for a long time. But the fact is those villages, especially now, with inflation, how much we're spending in budgets. By the way, I kept taxes low. I barely raised them in 4 years. We lost $1.8 million in COVID, but $2 million in surplus. I funded a 5-year capital plan to keep Malvern. Fact of the matter is, the government had $1 million for me for affordable housing, and I get to dictate how we use it and ensure that people who need get it. Oh, we're going to jump at that, and any mayor in this district will. They don't get it. It goes to the county, it goes to the state, and we barely see it. Get the funding where the funding's needed. That's how you actually help stave off a recession in this district, and how you actually help keep the kids on Long Island.
So what has been cited as there's what's working against Democrats in this congressional election.
More than one thing, my friend.
Well, there's history, which is the out of party usually does well after a presidential election. The second one is obviously inflation.
Yeah.
The rate of inflation. So, number one, what do you attribute the rate of inflation? And is there anything that the federal government can do to subdue the inflation that we're seeing? And this is excluding what the Federal Reserve Board does.
Yeah. Listen, me and you both know, though, the president gets blamed for the economy. He has very little control over the economy. He doesn't do the taxes. The House does. The Federal Reserve deals with monetary policy. That being said, I think what Biden has been doing with gas prices coming down for the past 8 weeks, not far enough yet. Don't know if the argument's going to work. I'm still paying $4 at the tank. But what he's done is immeasurable. I haven't seen a president do that. That's all Democratic policy. What he's done with these bills, we're getting things out there to help people in their daily lives. It's commendable. The problem you have is, and I'll say it to you, there is a red wave coming. We can be ostriches and put our head in the sand. Oh, it's coming. Inflation's up. Everything you pay for is up at the grocery store. We have a supply chain issue. And we have socialists in the Democratic Party. Republicans love to let everyone know that everyone's a socialist. I'm not a socialist. And I'm the only candidate who keeps his seat blue. She lost this district. This very district she touts as winning and running. She lost it to Don Clavin. She couldn't stand up to Don Clavin. She's not standing up to Don Trump. I will win this district. I'm the Democratic mayor of a Republican village. I have the safest village in Nassau County. Safest village. Public safety is a huge issue. And if you want to talk about socialists, oh, there's some on the state level. And they got their hands into that bail reform law, and that's why the legislation got completely out of whack. We need to ensure for public safety. It's the first priority of government. Then our businesses can thrive, our kids can be safe in school. We can do all these things we want to do, but the first priority is keeping our citizens safe. It's what I've done. It's what I've actually done as a legislator. It's what I've done as governing my village. And it's what I'm going to ensure is done across CD4, especially with the police departments here in this district.
Now, let me ask you this. Again, this week or the other day, we've had anti-Semitic flyers on the South Shore. You've seen a rise. The Anti-Defamation League says this is national. We've also seen attacks on anti-Asian attacks in Nassau County.
Yeah.
What do you attribute to this rise in anti-Semitism, these type of events? What do you attribute, and what can be done to reduce it?
When you have a former president who during his presidency and after fans the flames of hatred and these fringe cult cultures and they now think they have access to the public square, they don't. You can't incite hate. When you incite hate, you should be arrested. Right in Laura Gillen's own backyard where she lives, she's had 2 Proud Boy marches and twice now anti-Semitic flyers. I think there's something going on where Laura Gillen's supposedly living and working. The fact of the matter is, hate should be stopped right when it starts. You don't wait until the rhetoric ratchets up. You don't wait like the Nassau County just did the other day. Bruce Blakeman came out. What did he say? Oh, it's horrible what they said, but it's probably not illegal. Oh, because you just want to look at free speech? You don't want to look at the other aspect of that, which is inciting violence? If you're inciting violence, then you can be brought in. But they won't do that. The fact of the matter is hate needs to be called out when it's done. When it goes in the mailbox, you need to stand there and call it out. Find who did it, where they did it, where it's coming from. I guarantee when you do, you're going to find there's some illegal activities going on with these groups in a lot of ways. And you start going after those groups because what those groups are is a cancer that need to be cut out of our society.
So you're not saying the flyer itself that got distributed is illegal, but you're saying...
Well, no. Hold on. I am saying that for the first flyer, in my mind, as a legal scholar, attorney who's done this very case, I think it incited violence. And I think that incite of violence can be used now to investigate and go after the group. That's what I'm saying. Now, not every flyer will incite violence, unfortunately, but it's allowed in our free incite. You can say stuff people don't like, even as appalling it is to you. But these flyers and these marches that happen in Rockwell Center, 2 Proud Boy marches, and all the things happening, they're inciting violence. Look at their activity, their demeanor, the content of their words, which is how you actually analyze the legal issue. It's inciting violence. Use that to summons them, and then investigate into their groups to stop other violence from occurring going forward. There are legal tools at our disposal. County's not using them. There are legal tools there, and they can be used to stop these groups right where they start.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground. Let me ask you the 2 final questions. One would be on taxes. What do you see being done? It was right now in part of the legislation that was just passed, there was a minimum corporate tax of 15%, increase of funding for the IRS. Is there anything else that you think should be done with taxes?
Yeah, let me tell you my view of taxes. I hate them. No, I'm serious. I do. I think everyone should. Here, we need to make government more efficient. What I did in Malvern is we didn't raise, 0.04 was the tax increase in a 4-year period. 0.04. Lowest tax increase in any 4 period in Malvern's history, and we increased services. How? You have to make government efficient. The problem is the bureaucracy of Washington is so big. They keep raising taxes. Why don't you figure out the cost first, work there before we start dealing with taxes? Now, where Biden's going with the taxes, I think is necessary for us to have a balanced budget. I'm not in disagreement with it. What I am is about making government efficient. I know it's a novel idea. Let's make government do the job it's supposed to. Let's be efficient, and let's realize it's not found money. It's money coming out of your pocket and mine. What I do believe is this. I'd rather get more things paid for with income taxes spread across the country than real property taxes that every village, county, and town has to impose upon you. That's strangling us here in this county. And every bill I pass and every regulatory money I bring back, and it will come in a lot of loads, back up the trucks. It's going to come out of federal money. That's income taxes spread across the country coming in here without having to make a mayor or a board of trustees or a town super or a county exec raise property taxes. I'll give you another one, developers. We're doing some great developments on Long Island. Why should the taxpayer, real property taxpayer, have to pay for all the infrastructure improvements? We give away the pilot. He gets to build or she gets to build a beautiful building. And then in 5 years, we need more sewer capacity and water capacity, more garbage trucks. Where do you go to get that? Well, you gave them a reduction of property taxes, and then you go to your resident who owns a house or owns a business and takes it out of their pocket. No. I've already worked with certain developers. I presented this to certain mayors in Washington. We're going to provide money, federal money for infrastructure improvements. It can absolutely be done. Ronkonkoma, Wyandan Rice, Village of Hempstead, Village of Freeport, Long Beach. We shouldn't be paying property taxes for the infrastructure for the developer who's getting a break on taxes. Use the federal funds spread across an income base across the country to build the infrastructure. It's an efficient way of getting it done. It doesn't require an act of Congress. It just requires the regulatory rules and regulations to be modified at the administrative level of whatever alphabet soup you want to talk to. And I know about 6 of them that probably have the funding there. And then we have our infrastructure built out for the island. We have environmental resiliency built out for the island. It didn't require an act of Congress, and it's not going to look sexy because I don't get to pound my chest on TV on MSNBC. But I got to tell you, every resident will benefit from it because their local mayor and their local supervisor, their local executive, oh, no. He won't have to raise taxes for infrastructure. And I'll be there to call them out if they say they are. Because it should be federal funds paying for our infrastructure on this very delicate, sensible, environmental jewel we live on.
Okay, final question. Why are you the best choice to be the Democratic nominee for the 4th Congressional District in New York?
If you believe in a woman's right to choose, if you believe in protecting our voting rights, if you want to see assault rifles banned, I am the only candidate who wins the general election. Don't worry about 538 and all these polls. Laura Curran was ahead in the polls. She didn't win. Hillary Clinton was ahead in the polls. She didn't win. Laura Gillen was ahead in the polls. She lost. We need this seat to stay blue. We need the seat to stay blue so the policies we believe in as Democrats can get enacted. Because our opponent on the other side is a Donald Trump acolyte. And most of his island's probably going red. I will stand up to them. I will stand up with a clear Democratic message that provides for all of us. I'm the Democratic mayor of a Republican village. I have cross appeal beyond anything they will get. More importantly, I have results, real, tangible results from being a mayor, being the law chair of the Democratic Party, and from being an attorney, doing civil rights litigation and election law. I know the players in Washington. I know the players in Albany. I'm not going there for them. I'm going there for the residents of this district, for my kids and my grandkids, so we can provide funding here to stave off a recession, at least in CD4. More importantly, to show them what democracy looks like. Compromise is not a bad word. If you want to keep the seat blue, you need to vote for Keith Corbett.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank Keith Corbett for this important conversation, and all those who attended or will watch us. I'd like to again thank Northwell Health for sponsoring this afternoon's discussion. For those who were unable to watch today, and we did this on rather short notice, so that's probably most, a recording of our discussion can be found on Blank Slate Media's website, theisland360.com, and on our YouTube channel. We'll also be sending it out to our readers, links, and we'll also be sending it out to Keith Corbett. And we'll have a story about this afternoon's discussion will appear in the in 2 of the Blank Slate Media newspapers that are in CD4, the Herald Courier, the Williston Times, and that will appear this coming Friday. Again, I'd like to thank Keith Corbett. Thank you very much for sitting with us and presenting your views.
Mr. Blank, I appreciate it again. I enjoyed the conversation. Maybe I will subscribe. You never know. If you could send me, so after the article's out, I'd love to get one in email just so I could see it and give it to my press team so we don't have to go search for it. But I will say this. We have 3 important elections coming up, most important of our lifetime, no matter how old you are. This one, the next presidential, and the next off-year election 2 years after that. Our policy in this country for the next 40 years is going to be decided in these next 3 elections. We need real, credible people who have the ideas and understand how to implement them. I truly believe I'm that person, and I appreciate the time to explain to the voters today. So thank you to you, and thank you to Mr. Duffy.
Okay, thank you, Keith.
Be well now, guys.